Hello peeps and welcome back to Gult's Gorge. Now, I'm going to say right off the bat, this is a voiceover. So, if I'm explaining things and it seems like I'm psychic, I'm not. I'm doing a voiceover. Um, yeah, I made a mistake and reused episode 16's audio to record episode 17. So I'm redubbing it. Anyway, this stuff that I'm showing off right here is dimensional shard ore. You can only get it in RF Tools dimensions. So once you've created your first dimension, you can find that it's below level 30. That's what it looks like. It glows. And yeah, while I was out in the Highlands biome that I created last episode, I went out and I got a ton of emeralds and I got a ton of dimensional shards. Let's see. This is part of the reason why I don't like doing voiceovers is just because I hate having to talk like this over myself while I'm watching myself do something. Anyway, um, so, first thing I wanted to cover in this episode was the machine infuser that I mentioned last episode, but we didn't get around to. So, machine infuser, pretty easy to craft. Once you have it, it allows you to use dimensional shards to infuse the various machines. All of the machines can be infused from RF Tools. Well, I shouldn't say all, most. Most, if not all. Yeah, there I was placing it down just to show what the UI looks like and to remind myself it needed power, which it does. So we take it into the clean room here. Hi, kitty. Kitty, kitty, kitty. Take it into the clean room and pop it down. Connect it to the power source that's already down there. And the first, yeah, I think I was talking about, I didn't know if a hopper would work to put the dimensional shards in, but now I got to take all the dimlets out of this thing because the first machine that I want to infuse, and pretty much the first machine you should always infuse, is the dimlet workbench. Because the dimlet workbench, the infusion bonus for it is that you have a higher chance of getting all of the dimlets out of a machine, or you have a higher chance of getting all the dimlet parts out of a dimlet. So we start infusing that. It takes 4 stacks of dimension shards in order to infuse one machine. That's why I grabbed 4 stacks out of the ME system. The hopper does work, just so you know, and it works pretty much at the same rate that it consumes them, so it's actually a pretty neat little system there. But the dimlet workbench allows you to infuse machines, and they all get an infusion bonus. This one has an increased chance of getting all parts out of the deconstructed dimlet. If you look at the other machines, like the matter transmitter has a reduced power consumption and an increased teleport speed, which means that it takes less time to activate, so you're not standing there waiting for the teleportation to start as long. The power cells have an increased RF per tick output and a reduced long-distance power transmission costs. They do cost more power when you're sending power over long distances or between dimensions. The dimension builder reduces the power consumption and creates the dimensions faster, so it takes less time to create the dimension, which results in less power cost because the power cost is per tick, if I remember right. So less ticks means less power. And sitting here waiting for the dimlet workbench to finish infusing, and disco, there it is, infused 100%, plug it back in. And I didn't have any dimlets on me, so I got to run over. I stashed all of the dimlets in the chest between the the metallurgic infusers and is that an enrichment chamber over there? I can't remember. Um, yeah, the desert temple structure. This is the one I chose to disenchant. Those are the dimlet parts. The base circuit, level 3 rarity, medium, medium, medium. So we toss the desert temple in there, and you'll see that we get the 5 parts out of it. Now, you never get the 6th part out of it. If there's a 6th part that is required, like the terrain absorber or the biome absorber or anything like that, you don't get that part out. But you do pretty much always get all of the other dimlet parts out. But if you want to duplicate a specific biome, hello. Did you get into catnip or something? Hi, kitty. Come here, Fifi. All right. Anyway, yeah. So I did go ahead between episode 17 and 18. Spoiler alert. I did go through and disenchant all of those. Now, I also finally got the resonating crystal done. So this crystal is a 100% strength, purity, and efficiency with 100% power left. It used quite a few. Let's see. What am I explaining here? The nether stars. Yeah, the 90% gets you to up to 100. The purity is minus 60% for 500 millibuckets. So you got to be really careful. If your purity with these things ever hits 0, it destroys it. But if you take a look at the dimensional shard, 8% up to 80 and 1% up to 100. So as common as dimensional shards are, if you have extra crystals that you can toss into this thing to get the liquid crystal that's used to infuse the crystal, it's actually kind of worth it to use the dimensional shards to get boosts, because nether stars, I mean, let's face it, nether stars are a pain in the ass to farm. But these dimension shards, you go into an RF tools dimension, you pop a piece of dimension shard ore in the digital miner, and you can pull out literal stacks of this stuff in 5 minutes, and it's fortunable. So you end up with more crystals than you know what to do with. It burned through a lot of the filter material, and it gave us plenty of the spent filter material, which we are about to use, because these things, the crystal that I have, even though it is 100% in all attributes, it still produces a small amount of radiation. Radiation has all sorts of negative effects, so I want to try and blockade it. And there's a couple of ways to do it. You can use standard obsidian, if I remember correctly. It doesn't work too well. But I'm going over the parts here that you need. You need at least one of the generator controller blocks, that one there. You need generators, which you can have multiple generators attached to the same generator controller. I'm making 2 of them. And then you need one of those energy absorbers, the spike. And that goes on top of one of the generator blocks. The spike is what allows you to actually get the power out of the crystal. So you only need one of the spikes. You need the generator blocks. I believe one generator block allows it to handle up to 20,000 RF a tick. So one generator block is theoretically enough to handle one crystal, because the crystal, well, you'll see. I don't want to spoil how much the crystal actually gives. But I prefer to go with multiple generator blocks, because when you're dealing with this much power transmission, having more surfaces that you can attach to pull power out is beneficial. It gives you more ability to attach to it to get the power out. Anyway, so I've got all of the parts that I need in order to create this, but I need to get myself some dense obsidian and dense glass, which is obsidian and the spent filter material. The dense glass is a little bit of obsidian, spent filter material, and glass. This stuff blocks the radiation. Dense obsidian pretty much completely blocks it. Dense glass doesn't quite block all of it, but it blocks probably a good 90%. So the dense obsidian you can use for a viewing window, the dense glass you use for a viewing window, the dense obsidian, you mostly use that everywhere else. So, where to set this thing up? I decided to set it up right next to the power plant, simply for convenience sake. I don't have that much of the 20,000 per tick cable, and we're going to need 20,000 per tick cable in order to get this thing going. So that should tell you about how much power this thing's going to put out. The 5,000 RF a tick cable isn't enough. Do with that what you will. Decided on a 5x5 for my deep resonance room. So if you're doing the math, you know I don't have enough dense obsidian here, but it's okay. I end up making more later. I really dislike doing voiceovers, but so much happened in this episode that I feel needs explanation that I don't really think I have much of a choice on it. I kind of gotta voice over this one. Or spend an entire episode covering what I just did. I mean, 6 of one, half dozen of the other, right? Alright, so the generators are down. The generator controller goes down. It needs a redstone signal, so we have to have a way to connect the redstone to it. There's the energy collector sitting on top of one of the generators. And we start filling in dense obsidian. I think right about here is where I realize I don't have nearly enough of it. So we gotta go make some more. I am so happy to actually have flight now. I'm so used to having flight in Minecraft packs now. Like, what did we do back in the old days when you didn't have the ability to fly like this? I honestly don't remember how I used to survive without flight. Like, it's such a common thing. We were talking about it the other day. All of the changes that have happened between, like, you guys remember back in like 1.6 when we were playing around with mods, even back as recent as 1.6. It was like you had a base where you were generating 2000 RF a tick, like my base is generating right now without the addition of this crystal. You have a base that's generating 2000 RF a tick, and it's like, oh man, you've got some good power going on there. What are you going to do with all that power? I've got a base here with 2000 RF a tick. It's like, dude, what's wrong? Why is it only 2000? So yeah. All right, so here I have to make some Ender energy conduits, and I had enough for 16, and I think I've got a few more stashed away here. But we're going to use the Ender energy conduits because, well, like I already said, it doesn't transmit enough. Well, the enhanced energy conduit doesn't transmit enough. The Ender energy conduit can handle it. So now it's just a matter of getting it rigged up to the outside, which requires me to dig through the dense obsidian I just placed. Thankfully, I've got the fast drill, and I keep clicking off of it. There we go. Dig out the skystone and the basalt. Notice that that's chiseled basalt. It's not the basalt from Quark, which I won't use anymore. I honestly don't think I'm even going to include Quark in mod packs anymore because it's just too much of a pain in the ass and it doesn't add enough to really make it worthwhile. Now the Ender energy conduit that I'm using is not going to connect with the other energy conduit that I have because it's different RF transmission amounts. This is me being, this is me saying, well, I really want to make sure that I'm guarding down underneath because you see the red stuff that's there? That's actually the top of our blood magic room. And I didn't want to have a hunger effect down in our blood magic room if we're doing self-sacrifice because, well, you kind of need to be able to regenerate, so. So I decided to put dense glass down just because I didn't have enough dense obsidian on me. And then I think I put dense obsidian down in the floor in order to give us a little bit better shielding. And I think I do come back through here in between episodes and redo this shielding just to make it a little cleaner. And I also added a part to it. I added an RF Tools power module in order to automatically turn the power on and off. It's not working as intended, so I'm probably going to have to go back and figure out what I need to do with it. So now we've got the conduit set up. I am going to come back and put a conduit facade in there that's colored like that basalt to make it look pretty. And because I have terrible memory, I popped the basalt on top of it so that I'll remember at some point here. I actually haven't done it yet. So everything is connected, but now we need a way to get the redstone signal to that generator. And I actually decided that I wanted to try playing with something in actually additions here. I decided to go and start working on filter material. Okay, why am I getting filter? Oh, because I'm making another crystal. Yep, decided I wanted to get another crystal going because they take so long to get going. So we come in here and we toss the resonating ore in here, and for some reason this smelter absolutely hates me. It gets stuck. It gets stuck anytime it gets unloaded, and I have to break it and put it back down. I don't know why that is. But now it works, so go figure. The filter actually broke on me too. When I went to filter this, I had it at 100% and it would not come out, no matter what. I burned an extra nether star, I burned some crystals, I burned some emeralds, I burned a whole bunch of stuff on it to try and see if I was at that 99.99% thing. So I tossed some extra stuff in there and it still wouldn't go. So I broke the filter, placed it back down. The moment I put it back down, bam, started working. So if you're using deep resonance and you're having trouble getting stuff to work, try breaking the parts and putting it back down. It seems like it makes a difference, especially if your chunk loading failed for whatever reason. Went and made a little more dense glass. Not real sure why I made dense glass instead of dense obsidian. Oh, because I used the dense glass. Okay. All right, so we need a way to get the redstone signal to that generator. Now, those of you who are paying very close attention will realize that there's a really easy way to get the redstone signal to that generator. And me, overcomplicating things, didn't realize it right away. So I decided to play with this thing called a phantom face. A phantom face connects itself to an inventory or to a block and allows you to transmit certain things over a distance. The phantom face, for all intents and purposes, once it's linked with a block, acts like that block, or interacts with that block, or does something with that block. Like if you put a phantom face down and connect it to a chest, if you pipe stuff into the phantom face, it'll end up in the chest. Now, a redstone phantom face is supposed to transmit a redstone signal across to the item. Requires a phantom face, which is empowered diamantine, block of ender pearl. I think I already had the empowered diamantine, so I just needed the advanced coil. And I'm always out of gold for whatever ridiculous reason. So there's the advanced coil. There's the, I was short 1. So I decided just for giggles to make a block of it, since a block requires the same. Yeah, a block of it requires, yeah, I had the empowered redstone crystals, that's what I was looking at. A block of empowered material requires the same amount of infusion stuff that a single piece of it does. It just takes more time and more power. So if you're trying to infuse stuff, especially if you're infusing stuff that requires something that's kind of annoying to get, I'm looking at you, Empowered Palace, the lapis stuff, it requires 3 prismarine per infusion. You don't want to get one piece of lapis in exchange for 3 prismarine. You want to get a block of it. So when you're working with the infusing altar, always work with blocks if you have the choice. Simply because it's more material efficient and you'll save yourself some hassle. Between episodes, I actually did make a whole bunch of Empowered Palace blocks by running nether quartz through the infuser. Or not the infuser, the atomic reconstructor. That's what that thing's called. So we're sitting here waiting for that. There we go. Now we've got the empowered diamantine. The bare stone was annoying me, so I had to fix it. It was just driving me nuts. And then I don't know why I went to this one, but then I said, oh, wait, I think I was using the other one. Did I have anything in there? Not really, so I could have used the other one. All right, that gets us the phantom face, which I believe is the one that works with inventories. The phantom redstone face. Yeah, and then we need the phantom connector. So I have to have Eye of Ender. So need some blaze powder. And that gets us the phantom connector, which is what you use to link phantom blocks to the block that they're supposed to interact with. Now, if you've been paying really close attention, you might notice that I have been talking about the phantom redstone face block, and I've been using the term supposed to. So, we store the generator controller to the connector. We right-click on the phantom redstone face. Connected block is generator controller. It's 2 blocks away. The connection is fine and working. So, in theory, when we connect the lever to the phantom redstone face and give that thing a redstone signal, should work, right? In theory. I mean, you'd like to think so. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. I don't know why. I don't know what I did wrong. But I did decide to patch the floor before I tested this thing because I don't want radiation to get out. So we got the dense obsidian, we got the dense glass. I came over here and patched up the floor. Put that under there. And I was getting the ender effects, which was telling me that the phantom face thing should be working. But I attached the lever to it, and I flipped it, and nothing happened. And the generator's still off. Connector is fine and working. So I don't know what the hell happened. So I tried giving the phantom face a redstone signal right next to it. Still didn't work. So I'm like, you know what? I bet I could just slap it on the side there. Oh yeah, hey, that works. Didn't even need the phantom redstone face. Sometimes you just try to overcomplicate things, and it does not work as intended. So we are going to be using the phantom stuff very shortly. Not next episode. Next episode, I swear I'm putting the ME controller together because I'm tired of automatically routing things. I want more channels. So next episode is going to be the ME controller. But after that, we're going to play around with phantom faces. Now, here I was talking about radiation and the fact that it still puts out a little bit of radiation even though it's a pure crystal. If you look up in the upper left, it says no radiation detected, right? Walk in there, no radiation detected because the thing isn't on. If we flip that and then we walk in here and wait for it to kick on, all of a sudden, we're getting radiation. Now, we're only getting like 2, 3, 400. That's not bad. That's not real terrible. Notice that the radiation does get worse when you get close to the energy collector. The crystal doesn't seem to affect it. So, if you want to go for a minimalist build, you can encase the energy collector itself in obsidian by putting one on each side and one on top, and then putting a few pieces on and putting like a bed under the thing, and you can get away with that. If you don't want to build an entire room, all you have to do really is encase the energy collector. Dense obsidian does not block the crystals from sending power to the energy collector. It goes right through it, so you can get away with it. And you can see we've got a little bit of radiation, down at the roof of the blood magic room. You've got tiny little bit down at the floor, but 5 or 10 radiation isn't enough to cause any problems. So working completely well, working as intended. Really need to get back into blood magic too, because we got that. We spent all the time putting that thing together, and then we've used it for like what, half an episode? Yeah, now we're talking serious power. That crystal is putting out 19,000 and some RF a tick, and it is generating absolute shit tons of power. Compared to the old charcoal setup that I had that was putting out 480 RF a tick and burning up wood like mad, yeah, it's very nice. Very, very nice. And the short amount of time that I had that crystal running, take a look at how much power it used. It didn't even use 5% of the crystal's power. 19,981 RF per tick, and it lasts that long. So, yeah, good amounts of power. This is pretty much the end game power generation for what we have in Gult at the moment. Now, there is one more power generator that we're going to get into at some point. I don't think I'm ever going to get into it in this particular series because this map is probably going to end relatively soon. I mean, not like within the next week or 2 weeks, but probably before the month's out. And at the rate that I record, I'm never going to get to the Draconic reactor. We might get into some of the Draconic evolution stuff. I really want to get the armor, and I'd love to get the bow and start dealing with some of the dragon stuff. But, yeah. Alright, so this is me making the decision to come through and destroy the charcoal guzzling steam dynamo setup. And I broke the thing out and didn't get the charcoal out of it. I don't know if charcoal stays in these dynamos or not. But yeah, I decided that I want to start saving my charcoal for other stuff. And I wanted to start stockpiling wood because wood has been annoying. Wood has been one of those resources that I've needed, and because I've been spending all of my wood dealing with power, I haven't had any for building. And especially oak wood, because oak wood is what has been getting farmed by the Steve's Carts thing. And the only thing that we really have access to is dark oak wood, which is annoying when you have to make chests because it makes the dark oak chests. And those are a quark thing. And if you put those down and let them sit for any amount of time, they and everything in them disappear. Or transform into other stuff. Or, whatever. So, now we're actually getting a wood stockpile. And that's exactly what I wanted. Start getting some wood in, and good to go. One thing that I should mention that I did between episodes, I did off camera because it's really, really grindy. The wither spawner that I set up. I can't remember if I mentioned this in episode 16 or not. I think I did. I do have soul shards now for wither skeletons, endermen, and I have a level 3 cow shard. I wanted the level 5 endermen and wither shards because those allow you to control whether they're turned on or off with a redstone signal. One of the rules on Gults is that any particular group is only allowed to have one hostile mob spawner active at a time. So I want the ability to turn them off. And I also wanted the ability to put them in the wrong dimension for the wither skeletons. They're in the overworld now. I think it takes a tier 4 spawner to get them to ignore that. I wanted them to run whether or not I'm close to them. I think it takes a tier 3 for that, but it takes tier 5 to ignore a redstone signal. The cow thing, I only went tier 3 because we're not going to need that much beef. I wanted it to ignore whether I was close by or not, but I didn't really care too much about, being able to turn it off because we can have the cow spawner running, and as long as we're not flooding the place with mobs, which, I mean, we're not. We're going to kill all the cows to get beef. We need food. So, all right, so this was me deciding to be a lazy bastard, and I tossed a whole bunch of dimension shards in there to let those purify that liquid crystal. It'll get it up to 80%, and then you can use nether stars to blast it the rest of the way. I hate when I just stop and I look in JEI because I can never tell what I'm thinking when I'm doing this. It's like I'm sitting there, I'm holding a tree. Why? And I can't even refer to the audio because it was the wrong audio on this episode anyway. I'm actually sitting here watching myself play the game with all of the audio muted because that's how I'm going to have to re-upload it. Let's see, the solid shield block. I think here I was talking about setting up the automated wither spawner. Oh, yep. The auto placer and the phantom placer. The auto placer allows you to fill it with a certain type of block, and when you give it a redstone signal, it places it in front of it. A phantom face added to it turns it into a phantom placer, which allows it to place up to 3 blocks away. I've used this in single player. It works. You can place the you can use phantom placers just outside the shield in order to place the blocks to summon the wither inside the force field. But there's a problem. When it does that, it spawns a wither there. And if you try to spawn a second wither in there, that wither is taking up the place that those blocks are supposed to now be taking up, so it either doesn't place them or places them off to the side, and it screws it up. So if you're using phantom placers to place the wither inside the shield at the beginning, it doesn't work well. You can only spawn one at a time. So we're actually going to do what's more common, and we're going to use the draconic evolution method, which just involves regular placers, but it also involves, once I find it here, because I don't play around with draconic evolution that much, there is I think it's called a dislocator. Yeah, there it is, the dislocator. It's blaze powder, eyes of ender, or an eye of ender, and some of the draconium dust. And then I decide, well, I probably should get some blaze powder, and what's the most efficient method of getting that? I decided on the sag mill because the sag mill gives you the chance of the bonus output. Sometimes you get 4, sometimes you get 8 if you're using the dark steel balls, which we are. So zip over to the clean room. Another thing I'm really looking forward to is being able to put auto crafting together. I miss auto crafting. So there we got 44 blaze powder. So we can make a few things with it. We zip back over here. Once again, I'm using a different terminal. I'm seriously tempted to go down to one terminal and then place a remote network access thing on here once I get the ME terminal or the ME controller in. All right, so the dislocator, the way this thing works is you pick a point in space. And I grab that piece of dirt for a reason, because we're going to turn off the shield here. And if we want a wither to spawn right in the middle of this thing, you can stand on there with the dislocator, and you can, I believe it is shift right click to bind that teleporter. Then, from anywhere in the world, even in other dimensions, you can kill zombies. But you can click that thing from anywhere and it will teleport you back to where the dislocator was bound. The dislocator by itself has 20 uses by default, and it cannot be repowered. There's an advanced dislocator that allows you to add ender pearls to it, and that acts as the fuel. And you can use that to recall to wherever you want as many times as you want, as long as you drop ender pearls in it every once in a while. But you can make draconium infused obsidian. And then you can also get the dislocator receptacle, which requires a draconic core. Draconic core is draconium ingots and a diamond and some gold. Get used to seeing these because we're going to need a shit ton of them in the future. Draconic cores are used to craft pretty much everything in Draconic Evolution. It's actually annoying how many of them you end up needing. So, you can dig out an area and then replace the blocks that you dug out you didn't mean to. You can build a frame out of the draconium, pop that dislocator in there, and it creates a portal. And if you step in that portal, it acts as the dislocator. It teleports you to the location that that dislocator is bound to. Now, what makes this nice is the fact that it doesn't use any of the uses on the dislocator. It creates a stationary portal. You can't carry this one around with you, but it's infinite use. It's a great way to build portals that go back and forth between different bases, but it's also a great way to get withers into shields. Because if you build a big enough portal, the little tiny 1x1 portal that I just built there, that's not anywhere near enough. I want to have it probably at least 4x4 or 5x5. But if you spawn a wither right over that portal, it will drift down because the wither wants to drift down to the ground. He'll drift down, he'll touch that portal, and he'll spawn, or he'll teleport inside that force field. Now, since he's an entity at that point and not a block, other entities trying to shift into the same place with him won't get deflected. They'll push him aside a little bit, which gives us the ability to spawn multiple withers. That's what we want. I want the ability to spawn 2, 3, 4 withers at a time. If we decide we suddenly need a whole bunch of nether stars, I want the ability to do that. Alright, so checking on the fuel source, or the fuel for the reactor. Because the reactor, 2000 RF tick is nothing to sniff at for the amount of yellorium that we go through. But I wanted to have the ability to generate absolute shit tons of power, because we're going to need it. If you take a look at the factory that I have set up for ore processing, that thing uses a lot of power. And 2000 RF tick is not going to support that, plus automatic mining, plus the pump system, plus it's not going to support everything. So we're going to need more and more power. And once we get onto the Draconic Evolution stuff, some of this stuff has ridiculous power costs. If you take a look at the Awakened cores, those are 9 million RF each. And use a lot of Awakened cores. If we take a look at, once I find it, I think I'm looking for the chaotic stuff. Yeah, there it is, chaotic core. 800 million RF to create one chaotic core. And that also requires 4 of those awakened cores. So there's 9 million RF times 4. And then it requires awakened draconium to make that. You're looking at about a total investment of 1 billion RF per chaotic core. Right now, our entire power system stores 250 million. 275 million. Actually, a little more than that. So, now I was talking about what I want to do to store the kind of power we're going to need to have for Draconic Evolution. There's two methods, and I forgot to actually bind the dialer to Hype's place. So I ended up teleporting to the Highlands dimension for whatever reason. So let's fly back over and bind this. There are two methods that you can use realistically to store absolute tons of power. Yeah, I used up all of the crystal in this thing because I let this thing run longer than I should have. So I'll have to come back and fix that later. So we dial this into Hype's place. We check to make sure it's dialed to Lincoln Hype's place, and we teleport out there. So you can use vibrant capacitor banks stacked up. Each one of those holds 50 million. Stack two of them, it holds 100 million. It takes a lot of them to hold 1 billion. This is one of the two methods of mass power storage. This is an energy core, and this is a tier 7 energy core. This has a power capacity of 2 trillion RF. So yeah, this is nothing to sniff at. This is, however, a tier 7, which there's one that's beyond this that holds basically unlimited power. But the tier 7 thing requires an absolute shit ton of redstone and a shit ton of draconium blocks, and it requires these pylons to get power in and out of them, and I don't really care for it, and it's overdone. So if you're not going to use the capacitor banks, and you're not going to use the energy cells, and you're not going to use the draconic evolution, then what can you do? Well, I'll tell you as soon as we take a look at this draconic tablet, because apparently I had never actually made a draconic tablet in this server. So we take a look at the draconic tablet, and we look at the actual crafting cost for the energy storage network. And I think I look at the energy network first, and then I realize, oh, I'm looking at the wrong thing. And look at the energy storage core. The energy core setup. A tier 1 just requires an energy core and 4 energy core stabilizers, but it holds very little power. Then you add some draconium blocks and you get more power storage. Then you add more draconium blocks, you get even more. Tier 7 takes an energy core, 36 energy core stabilizers, 210 blocks of draconium, 328 redstone blocks, and it stores 1 trillion RF. The tier 8 takes 378 awakened draconium blocks. You get 4 awakened draconium blocks for a dragon heart and a shit ton of power and a shit ton of draconium. So you're looking at having to kill the Ender Dragon close to 100 times in order to make that power core. Fuck that noise. So if we're not going to use power cells and we're not going to use the draconium, the draconic evolution, we're going to use mechanism. Mechanism has a power storage thing called an induction cell. It's a multi-block that's crafted out of induction casings, the induction ports, which is the little white thing there, and then a combination of induction cells and induction providers. You build the casing out of the casings and out of the ports. The ports are where you can put power into or out of the thing. On the inside of those ports, you have to have an induction provider. The provider controls the maximum in-out rate of the thing. And then the induction cells include or tell you how much you can store in it. This is essentially unlimited power storage. It can hold more than a tier 7, and I think it's cooler, but it requires lithium. There's 2 ways to get lithium. Either the tiny amounts you get from industrial craft, or you can make thermal evaporation things. Thermal evaporation plants. That's the way we're going to go. Now, we're getting towards the end of the episode here. It's 44 minutes and 22 seconds. I can't remember how long the episode is, but I think it's about to end. So this has been Night Dagger with episode 17, and I'll catch you later.